Hello, hello, good afternoon, good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Northern Virginia Motor Railroad Club. We are here in Vienna, Virginia. It is the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, and we are coming to you live. If you happen to be in the Vienna area and you want to come down and see this in person, we are live here from 1 to 5. Otherwise, we will be here for the next 4 hours online. We've got a few different views for you here. This is Washington and Atlanta. Give me 1 second. Let's get that going again. There we go, Washington and Atlanta. This is our main staging area. It represents the cities of Washington, D.C. to the north and Atlanta to the south. We'll explain a little bit more of why that is in a little bit. Here we have Spencer Yard, Spencer Junction. This is the main yard on the layout. It's also the very front level. You can see we have a yard operator down there who are doing some switching. You can also see Henry, one of Thomas's many friends, looping the layout on the bottom level. Moving up to the mountain, we have Old Fort, which is about the middle of the layout. It's the last town before we get into the steep section where you can see. Well, and we have a train coming down the steepest part of the layout from Ridgecrest, which is where we will head to next. Some trains go across the very top of the mountain. If you're standing in our visitor aisle, we are at the very back of the layout. Alright, and moving on to Swannanoa. This is a hidden area. If you're standing in our visitor aisle, we'll get it to you a few times here during our open house event here. Trains have come across the big bridge that you can see, and then they will head down below the camera into our other hidden staging area that we don't have a view on today. But here we see the reefer train coming out of the Asheville area and around Swannanoa. We will be taking questions. If you have questions about the club, about the layout, please let us know. We will have question times where we'll answer those. We have a few pre-recorded segments that we'll bring to you throughout the day as well. Otherwise, we hope you enjoy. Have a wonderful day wherever you are.
Well, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Northern Virginia Motor Railroad. Glad you're here. Thanks for sharing part of your afternoon with us while you're visiting ViVa Vienna. Anybody here had anything to eat yet out there? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Anybody had any popcorn? No? Okay. Anyhow, this is not a food place. This is a model railroad place. We're glad you're here. This is a working, obviously, HO scale model railroad. It's not a toy. We're part of this is part of Northern Virginia Model Railroaders, and we're modeling the actual railroad that ran in western North Carolina. There's a map on the wall over there behind the tall guy that shows the route from Salisbury, North Carolina, which is that depot down there, all the way up to Asheville over here. It's behind this mountain. But you know you're there because you can see the Biltmore Mansion. Anybody here ever been to Asheville? Anybody here ever seen the Biltmore Mansion? Yeah, okay. Does that look like it? Okay, we got to vote for yes. Anyhow, we're glad you're here, and if you would, move on down this way because there are people still coming in, and we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to get in the visitor aisle there. Anybody have any questions while you're moving down? Any jokes, any answers, any okay. Anyhow, this building you're in is historic. This is a train station that was first here before the Civil War in the 1850s. And why was it here? Well, there was a railroad right outside behind that wall, called the Washington and Old Dominion Railroad. Then that's why that's the W&OD Trail. If you're a local person, you know the W&OD. Anyhow, that railroad was never a very big railroad. It used to carry milk into Washington in the 1920s, and in the 1960s it was used to carry building materials because they were building this new airport west of here. You may have heard of it. It's called Dulles International Airport. Well, in the late 1960s, when the first phase of that airport was completed, there was no more need for this railroad, so they shut it down, and it was boarded up. They started to take the tracks up, but we came here in the early 1970s and started cleaning the place up, put some lights in and some heat so we could have warmth in the winter while we built this railroad. All right, there you go. There's enough out of me for now. Anybody have any questions or suggestions? How can we make this better? Okay, I got more trains over here. Here's some usual questions. How long did it take us to build this? And my usual joke is we started 2 weeks ago and we were working hard. And actually, it was over 40 years ago when this railroad began being built by our model railroad ancestors. Come on down, folks. There's room down here. Another question we often get is, how many trains are running? Well, it depends. You know, right now, probably about 10. And if you come back later, there might be 5. And you come back after that, there might be 20. But the cool thing is modern technology says there's a little chip inside each of these locomotives. And so each of these trains can be addressed separately from all the others by their engineer. So we can run multiple trains all day long and never have an accident, we hope. But if we do have an accident, fortunately, nobody gets hurt. Come on in, folks. There's people still coming, so if you would, cuddle up down here at the end. By the way, when you leave by the exit door, which is over here, be sure and grab a flyer. Talks a little bit about our railroad. Our website is on there. And you can see when our next open house dates are. Of course, the next, very, very next open house is tomorrow, right here. And there's a freight car by the door which accepts contributions, but your visit is absolutely free. We're glad you're here. Most people on ViVa Vienna days end up spending their money buying snow cones and rides, and that's okay by us. So have a good afternoon. Hope you enjoy your stay here. And if you do have any questions, ask one of these big guys in the green shirts. They know everything.
They're nice size, but I've always done the yeah. Okay, it's fine. There's a lot of detail, but it takes up a little That's why it's half zero. HO. Questions, jokes, answers, complaints, complaint department,
He's got about 10 different engines running, multiple tubes. That's pro gauge.
Well, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Northern Virginia Model Railroads. There's plenty of room down here. Come on down. Meet your neighbors. Anybody here from Vienna? Oh, good.
We're glad we have a few locals. Come on down. This is, by the way, the exit door. When you leave, please go out this door. Don't try and go against the flow of traffic that way, but come on this way. This is obviously a working scale model railroad, HO scale. We're modeling the actual real railroad called the Western North Carolina back in the 1950s. And if you look at the tall guy there, there's a map behind him that shows the route we are modeling from Salisbury, North Carolina, that beautiful train depot down there by the door, all the way up to Asheville, which is behind this mountain. So if you can't see Asheville from where you are, but you can see the Biltmore Mansion up there, and that overlooks Asheville. Anybody here ever been to Asheville? Yeah. Does that look like the Biltmore? Hey, there's one down there. That's great. And guess what? Your visit here is free, but I bet you didn't get in there for free. Anyhow, this is a scale model railroad. We're modeling the period roughly in the 1950s, early 60s, where you have steam and diesel locomotives. So this building you're in, by the way, is historic. This is a train station was here before the Civil War. The Washington Old Dominion Railroad used to run behind that wall, taking milk into Washington in the 1920s and rocks out to build Dulles Airport in the 1960s. So you're in a historic building. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down here. Get to know your neighbors. And by the way, again, when you leave, please go out this exit door here and grab a flyer, which is right next to the door. Come on down. Yeah, everybody, welcome. Glad you spent part of your afternoon at ViVa Vienna days with us. Anybody here had anything to eat yet today? Any recommendations? What's the fine cuisine out there? Corn dogs. Okay, got to vote for corn dogs. All right. Anyhow, that's the story. This is again a working scale model railroad, HO scale. Each of these trains is being run by a separate engineer. They all have a little microchip in the locomotive, which allows them to be addressed individually from all the other trains. So we can run multiple trains on the layout at any time and hopefully never have any accidents. And the good news is if we do, well, nobody gets hurt. All right, any questions? Anybody have any questions or answers? Usual joke. Okay, so some of the more frequently asked questions are, how long does it take to build this? And the answer is over 40 years. It's not portable. We don't take it down at night and move back in here the next day. And it's constantly under upgrade, maintenance, and repair. We are constantly changing scenery, upgrading the technology. It's a work in progress, and it has been for over 40 years. So let's see here. What else might you like to know? Here's a question from the lady there. How many trains are running now? I'm guessing about 7 or 8. I'm not sure. We could count them. More. But we can run more than that. If you come back in another hour, there may be 20. If you come back an hour after that, there may be 6. It depends on who's here. These are all club members, by the way. And we have a club which meets every Tuesday evening at Tuesday evening in this location, obviously. And if you're interested in model railroading or interested in becoming a member of the club, please stop by any Tuesday evening. We'll be glad to talk to you, tell you a little bit more about this railroad, and give you a back scenes tour. That was a great question, by the way. What's one of the usual ones? Let's see, what are some of the other questions? How long does it take to build the railroad? Well, I mentioned that, but how long does it take to build the cars and the locomotives? The answer is, these days they all come ready to roll. So there's very little construction of actual rolling stock or locomotives anymore. Come on down, folks. There's room down here. Be sure when you leave to go out this door, take a flyer with you. It tells you a little bit about the club and gives you the website, and also will give you the next open houses. The very next open house is tomorrow, right here, for ViVa Vienna Days. Thanks for being with us, by the way. I hope you enjoy the rest of your ViVa Vienna tour. Come back and see us often. By the way, for the children here, Thomas and his friends often visit with us on open house days. Here comes a couple of Thomas's friends right now. In fact, actually, they just ran into each other. There's 2 Thomas's friends all hooked up together there now. The person that's running those trains actually is in the back and can't quite see everything. Is that you, Mark? Hey, Ross, maybe you could help Mark out by separating those 2 Thomas trains. They managed to hook up. For those of you who are technically inclined, this is HO scale, which is 1 to 87.1 or 0.2 if you're mathematically inclined. If you're not mathematically inclined, it's still 1 to 87. So which means a 40-foot boxcar is about 5 inches long. There's a bunch of them lined up in the yard there. Question from the young lady. Oh, okay, good question. The question was, what year are we modeling? Is that right? And the answer is late 1950s, early 1960s. And the follow-up question you're about to ask is why? And the answer is because that was the period that's called the transition period in U.S. railroading. So there were steam engines and diesel locomotives on the railroads. So that means all of us who are fans of either one or the other or both can run anything here. Now, in open house days, we have modern locomotives. We have all kinds of stuff. As I said before, we have Thomas and his friends here as well. So this is not typical for one of our club meetings. We usually have locomotives and trains that are in the 1950 or early 1960 era. But great question. Those two questions you asked were great. Any other questions? Well, we're glad you're here. And again, glad you spent a little bit of your time with us. Go out and enjoy ViVa Vienna. Have some more food. Corn dogs were recommended earlier. Come on down, folks. There are people who are just arriving. There's plenty of room down at this end. You're welcome to look at the whole railroad from the whole visitor aisle there.
If you've ever wondered what it looks like during an open house here in the background, we're going to cut over now to a pre-recording of a time lapse through Washington and Atlanta from the last event. Here we go.
out west, and they actually have restored one to operating service. And the answer is yes. We don't have one here today, but we have run that model of that that locomotive on this railroad. Good question. Anybody else have any questions? Well, I have a few. Yeah, here's one here. How many feet of track? 87 scale miles. Does that help you out? Another question from the Buffalo Bills here, or whatever, Star Wars. The question is, do we have the original Vienna station on this model? And the answer is no, but there is a model of it out in the museum area. So when you leave by this door, go back in the front door and go into the museum, and you can see it over against the wall. There's a model, HO scale model of this railroad back in the early 1900s. Not to be missed. Great question. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down here at this end. There are people still waiting to come up the stairs, I think. Glad to keep you moving through. Be sure and leave by this door down here and take a flyer with you, which is right next to the door when you go. Any other questions or answers? Anybody had anything other than a corn dog to eat out there? There's a lot of food out there, I'm told. What's your favorite ride? Anybody had a favorite ride yet? Oh, the jet ski. Okay. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down here at this end. There's people still waiting to come up the stairs there. Again, we're glad you're here. By the way, for those of you that are really interested in railroads, this locomotive that's right in front of me pulling this coal train is really very interesting. The cab, it's a steam locomotive, but the cab is in the front. They call it cab forward. And the reason for that is because the smoke from the coal comes out the back of the locomotive instead of the front. And so when they went through tunnels out west, the engineer and the fireman did not have to inhale all of the coal smoke or oil smoke if they were using oil. Coal trains usually move pretty slowly. As you can see, this one's moving very slowly because they were heavy and they were long. We have some of Thomas's friends here, by the way. Can anybody tell me who the green locomotive is? Anybody know? Henry, okay, we no more calls, please. We have a winner. Come on down, folks. We have plenty of room.
Come on down. We're glad you're here.
Again, welcome to everybody. Your visit here is absolutely free. Stay as long as you like, as long as you're not here past 5 o'clock because we close. And hang on, I'll get right to you. When you leave, be sure and leave by this door down here and take a flyer with you now. What was your question, sir? Okay, he asked a question, which is, do we ever operate these locomotives that are by the roundhouse? By the way, I'll tell you about the roundhouse in a second. The answer is yes, sometimes. Not today, apparently.
But I never seen this one. You know, the one with the sledge and the thing that always clears out snow. This
Oh, you're talking about this. Yeah, there's a snowplow there. Sorry, what was your question? Oh, you're talking to Jake, not me. Yeah, all right. Anyhow, there's a lot of interesting railroad stuff right in front of you, and I don't want to go into a long dissertation about it all. But down here at this end is a steam engine roundhouse. Steam locomotives ran really well forward, but they didn't run so well backwards. So there's a turntable here because they had to when they maintained them, they put them in the roundhouse. They had to turn them around to get them back out again. Diesel locomotives run equally well in either direction, forward or back. So the roundhouse is for steam locomotives. Come on down, folks. There's room down here so everybody can see. There's some people on the stairs there. Glad you're here with us. Got a couple of really long trains here today. These are more modern trains. The one that's going by now that looks so long and colorful is thank you, intermodal. I couldn't think of the word. Those are freight containers that will fit on trucks or on ships or on trains, and they're in a well, so they're not so tall. The lower one of each freight container sits down in a well, and then in the modern railroad world, they have long trains just like this one that carry lots and lots of freight that way. All your Amazon stuff comes by rail. I'm just kidding. I just made that up. Okay, I was wrong. I was right. I was wrong that I was wrong. I'm right. He says there. He says that Amazon actually has its own containers. Who's surprised to hear that? Come on down, folks. There's lots of room down here, and the exit is down here too. By the way, you're welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Go have a corn dog or something. All right, folks, come on down. There's room down here. There are still people coming up the stairs. Get a chance to get everybody through here today. Thanks for stopping by. This is a working scale model railroad, HO scale. And there's a question here. Go ahead, sir. People travel by train? Is that what you're... Yes, in fact, there's a passenger train here, and we do have some more passenger trains on the railroad somewhere. We're again modeling the era of the 1950s, early 60s, so that this train behind the two guys there in the green shirt is a Pennsylvania Railroad passenger train. So anyhow, let's see, what else? I was going to... Question down there. What scale are the automobiles? They are HO scale. They're 1 to 87 or 187.2 or something like that. Some nice number. And oh yeah, this is interesting. The fellows just found the campfire over here. On your way out, be sure and check out the campfire just at the base of the mountain down here. And there's some mountain climbers. They're climbing the mountain, but it's illegal. They're in luck though, because there's a police car sitting down here, but he's waiting on the drag race to start. There's a lot of things happening on the railroad today. Be sure and check them all out. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room. Plenty of room. The exit door's down here too. When it's time, whenever you get ready to leave, be sure and grab a flyer on your way out. So again, this is a historic building you're in. Just to give you a quick history lesson, before the Civil War, there was a train station right here on this spot. The new part of this train station was built in the early 1900s. That's the door through which you entered. That waiting area where the museum is built in the early 1900s. It's over 100 years old. So when you walked in here, you walked into history. We, of course, have just made this room more comfortable for our model railroading purposes. This used to be the freight room. All right. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down here. Come on down. Lots of room. Somebody asked about a passenger train. Here comes one here now. It's going to come out behind that mountain. This is a Pennsylvania Railroad passenger train. It happens to be running on western North Carolina today. All kinds of things happen. All right. So, again, this is Northern Virginia Model Railroaders. We're glad you're here. You're among our many honored guests, including Thomas, the tank engine, and his buddies. There goes Thomas right there. Thomas and his friends join us on open house days oftentimes. So if you hang around just a little while, you'll see some more of Thomas's friends. Okay, this railroad, we're modeling the Western North Carolina Railroad, and right behind you is a map, and that map shows the route that we're modeling from Salisbury, North Carolina, which is that train station down there by the door, all the way up to Asheville, which is behind this mountain here. You can see the Biltmore Mansion overlooking Asheville, so that's why it's the Western North Carolina. The Western North Carolina Railroad was eventually became part of the Southern Railway. But we're modeling it so it was in the days when it was still an independent railroad through the mountains of western North Carolina. If you know North Carolina, you know the western part is pretty mountainous. So that's why you see all these hills. All right, that's a great question. Here's another question by the young lady with the hat. All right, the question was, did we start out to build this railroad, and how long did it take to build? Are you from England or which part? Okay. The reason I ask is because my son-in-law is from the north. All right. So, northern England is. So, the question again was about did we start out to build it this way, and how long did it take to build? And the answer is yes. Our Northern Virginia Model Railroaders ancestors, this club started years ago. We just celebrated our 70th anniversary. Or was it the 75th? Randy, what was it? 75th. We just celebrated our 75th anniversary, and we've been in this location over 45 years. But when we came here to this location, our model railroad ancestors decided they wanted to build a railroad that had more interest to it than the one outside there. The Washington Old Dominion Railroad was here, but it wasn't really that interesting. So they decided to build Western North Carolina, and that's why this railroad. Now, the second part of your question was how long it take to build, and I usually joke and say we started 2 weeks ago and we've been working hard, but the truth is we started over 40 years ago building this particular railroad. The club actually had a railroad layout in the Potomac Yards area of the Southern Railway, but there was a period of time where they decided they needed that office back, so they kicked us out, and we came here. And in fact, yeah, he's pointing to the building. He's going to show you that there was a model railroad inside the model railroad. There's actually a model of the model. Oh, I stand corrected. I was just told by one of our officers it's a model of the model on a model, so it's 3 models. Passenger trains move fast, don't they? All right, so let's see here. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down here. That was a great question, ma'am. Do you have any more from England, North England, South England? What are the hills? Good question. She asked, what are the hillsides built out of? What is the train built out of? Lots of different things, but most of this is chicken wire covered with cardboard or cardboard strips that are glued together to form a supporting base, and then we put hydrocal over that, and then we put other stuff over that, and then we put trees and grass and rocks and dirt. Does that answer your question? So, like these rocks over here are not real rocks. They're surprising. They're castings, right? This is the Spencer Yard. Yes, excellent question. You get an A+ for that. You get a free visit tomorrow if you want it. Wonderful. Yes, this is Spencer Yard. Now you get me started talking. There's a lot of stuff here in Spencer Yard. There's an ice house because back in the day, refrigerated cars that carry perishable stuff like fruits, vegetables, and flowers had to be kept cool with ice. Over here, there's a roundhouse where steam locomotives were repaired and maintained. There's a big building there for freight cars that were maintained. And way over here on this side is a repair facility for the diesel locomotives that were on the road. So this is all in Spencer Yard, and there's a classification yard as well. Trains would come in here and they'd break them up and put them together and take them back out on the railroad. Good question. Free check. Give that man a free ticket for tomorrow. You were the first president of Southern Railroad? Oh, Spencer, yes. That's why they named it Spencer Yard, I believe. Is that right? Fantastic. What a guy. You need to be in the club. Do you live nearby? Well, thank you for stopping by from North Carolina. Glad. You grew up in D.C.? Well, hey, you're back home again. Glad to have you here. Thanks for stopping by. It's been a while. Yeah, let's see here. Was there another question down here? Did I miss it? No. Okay. Come on down, folks. Plenty of room. Yeah, thank you for taking the flyers, sir. We're trying to get rid of those. Come on down, folks. Lots of room down at this end. Meet your neighbors. If you're from Vienna, there's some people down here from Vienna. If you're not, then they're not from Vienna. Yeah, I see Mickey Mouse down there on the top of a very tall young lad. Yeah. Okay, folks, glad you're here again. Come on down. This is the exit door down here, by the way. Be sure to go out that door and grab a flyer on your way. We're not trying to get rid of you, just trying to tell you what to do. This is the Napa Valley Wine Train, by the way. You should all go take a ride on that. Let's see here. If the people that have not been here before, did I tell you any story? Have you heard any of my drivel before? Okay, you want to hear the drivel. All right, here it is. This is a working scale model of an actual railroad, the Western North Carolina. There's a map on the wall over there that shows you the route we're modeling from Salisbury. See that big depot down there? All the way up to Asheville, which is behind this mountain up here. You can see the Biltmore Mansion up there, overlooking Asheville. So this is the Western North Carolina through the hills and mountains of Western North Carolina back in the 1950s and early 60s. Its HO scale, which is the most popular scale, is about 1 to 87. Oh, yeah, there's what looks like a white school bus. Yeah, they actually did that. They put railroad wheels on there, and they could get on the rails and ride the rails in the school bus. That was for moving railroad personnel around. Okay, come on down, folks. Anybody have any questions, by the way, or answers? Okay. Well, yeah, we're glad you're with us. Thanks for stopping by. Enjoy ViVa Vienna days. And our next open house is actually tomorrow, right here in this location. Here comes Thomas. If you're familiar with Thomas and his friends, here comes Thomas.
So we've been following a train up the mountain. You probably noticed, just came across Ridgecrest. If you look in the top layer, it's just gone around the very upper layer of our helix area. Here in a second, you should see it come back around on the second layer down. And then we'll follow it through to Swannanoa, where it will disappear into Asheville. It is passing through there on the far side of the support, so we may not be able to see it from here.
Unusual spin. See, the unusual spin is that I don't Yeah, come on back and make the spiel. I'm sorry. The club is growing, and I'm an old fart, so I'm sorry. I'm an old guy, so I don't know all the newer members. So this is an interesting train that's coming by right now for me. This is not an older train. This is a more modern train. This train has a lot of cars to it because in today's modern railroading, freight containers which move on ships, trains, buses, not buses, but trucks, are often loaded on long trains to make the hike across country or wherever they're going. So this is an example of one of those. Lots of freight containers. Those are 40-foot freight containers. They're obviously not 40 feet long, but they're scale 40 feet. And in the modern railroad world, they'll put a bunch of locomotives on the front of one of those trains and make it as long as possible. You know, some 40-foot containers are longer than other 40-foot containers. It's like some people are more equal than others. Okay, anybody have any questions? Like, how can I get in William and Mary? Straight A's, high SATs, conduct the band, cheerleader, no, captain of the girls lacrosse team. Still doesn't get you in, right? Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room. Okay, come on down, folks. Welcome to Northern Virginia Model Railroaders. We're glad you're here. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. Hope you're enjoying ViVa Vienna. You know, you're in the club. You count them. Yeah, have a great day. Enjoy ViVa Vienna. Yes, ma'am. There's a question here by the little lady. That's an often asked question. The question was, how long did it take to build it? And the answer is, this particular railroad has been under construction for over 40 years. Our railroad ancestors, our model railroad ancestors, came here in the 70s after the club got kicked out of a facility down in Potomac Yards. But we didn't get kicked out for bad behavior. They needed the building back. To build a model? You mean, well, the whole thing is a model. So over 40 years. Yeah, how long did it take to build this model? Well, it's a model railroad, so the whole thing is a model. Here comes Emily, I think, one of Thomas's friends. Maybe somebody can tell me. Is that Emily? Come on down, folks. Plenty of room down here. Welcome. Welcome. Glad you're here. Enjoy the Northern Virginia Model Railroaders. We're a bunch of guys who never grew up, and ladies. We do have lady members. Everybody's welcome. Come on down. There's plenty of room down at this end. Let everybody in. How's that going out there? How's ViVa Vienna? Anybody having any fun? Anybody have a fun ride? Anybody had a corn dog yet? Is it lunchtime? Yeah, it is lunch. Okay. Anyhow, folks, let me give you the brief spiel. This is an actual scale model, a working scale model railroad. We're modeling the Western North Carolina Railroad through the mountains of Western North Carolina. The map on the wall back there shows the route that we're using. Goes from Salisbury, North Carolina, that's that building down there, beautiful depot, all the way up to Asheville, which is behind this mountain here. You can see the Biltmore Mansion up there overlooking it, so you know you're there. Anybody here ever been to Asheville or seen the Biltmore Mansion? Does that look like the Biltmore Mansion? How much does it cost to get into Biltmore these days? More than this, though, right? So there you go. You can see the Biltmore Mansion, and you don't have to pay a thing. Look at that. And what a deal we have for you today. Come on down, folks. Plenty of room down here. Get to know your neighbors. The exit door, by the way, is here. Don't go back the way you came because it'll be swimming upstream. It's kind of like, you know, when you're deplaning the airplane and you want to go toward the back of the plane and get your bag, swimming downstream, upstream. Anyhow, thanks for being with us, folks. Be sure and grab a flyer on your way out. You're welcome.
Started in 1949. And that was after World War II, where finally there was enough equipment and materials available to actually support model railroading. So in the early days, a group of 6 people got together, and they were able to acquire a building that the Southern Railroad had down in Alexandria, Virginia. Southern had a flat yard down there. They had a shed down there. Actually, it was pretty decent building, and they let the club members have it. So that's how we got started in that club. The building was a low ceiling building. So what you had was you walked in the door, and in order to control the railroad, there was a loft. And what you did is that the 5 controllers went up a ladder, opened up a door, trap door in the floor, and then sat down in the chairs and looked over the railroad. And because back then it was pure DC, each person up there had one of the throttles, and they would select that part of the railroad for them to control. And down below would be their brakemen, so that if they wanted to stop the train and set a car out, that person down there would do that. One of the interesting things of the club that I noticed was a narrow gauge section. There was actually a narrow gauge railroad down there, and what drew my attention was that there was dual gauge track for both narrow gauge and standard. The narrow gauge was very small, and I assume it was the product because some of the members had narrow gauge trains and wanted to run it. So they were down there. You had to be very careful at night during the winter time to get to the yard shack, because you went across active tracks in the yard, and sometimes when they would bump a car, and it would be quietly running down that track, and you had to look both ways before you went across it. There was no place for visitors. In other words, there wasn't a visitor aisle, and probably one of the reasons is it was too dangerous to get visitors there because you had to cross active tracks. Today, I don't think any railroad would allow civilians to go across their property in order to get to their building. We got the word that that the Southern was going to withdraw from the Alexandria station, or the Alexandria yard, and that we had to vacate our facility there. So we started looking around to see if we could find some other facility, and one of the early members was Dr. Herb Bialik, and he was a resident here in Vienna, and he knew the mayor very well, so he went to the mayor, and they both along went to the Northern Virginia Park Authority to see if indeed we could get the station here in Vienna. At the time, it was vacated, and that it was actually decaying. So it gave us an opportunity to find a new place, and we were lucky enough that they said yes, come on in. There was a stipulation that we would have a place for visitors, so that's why this club here has a visitor's aisle, and that's made all the difference in the design, that you can have people come in, walk the visitor's aisle, and then out through an exit, so it keeps the flow moving right along. There were 2 gentlemen, both naval officers, captains. One was Captain Holt, and the other was Captain Cooper, and they had met up each other out at Monterey, California, a naval school out there, and basically they designed the railroad. Because the station, which is the old baggage area, is so high, in order to have a longer train runs, we terraced the railroad. So that's why this railroad is terraced, and one of the advantages, you can walk under to work on it and to maintain it, which is really pretty good. The other thing that's interesting is we have a trolley line down in front that you can see here, and the reason we have the trolley line is because of Captain Cooper, because at the time when he was posted out at Monterey, he was very close to John Allen. And if you look at one of John Allen's pictures in Model Railroader, there was a trolley in that picture, and it had DC on the side. And at first I thought the DC was for the electrical as opposed to AC. But no, it stood for David Cooper. So that's why we have a trolley system here, because he wanted a trolley system. So that's kind of interesting as to how we got that. The other thing is, the only thing that we saved from down at Alexandria are the ladder rungs that are over our door as you enter the train room here, and that's so that we can go up and maintain lights and all in the ceiling. So that's about all we have from down at Alexandria. I think one of the most interesting things as to why we can celebrate 75 years is that in that entire time we've only had 2 locations, and that makes all the difference. A lot of clubs end up having to constantly move, 5 years here, 8 years there, and after a while it just gets to be a burden. So our success, I believe, is that we had the Alexandria, and then we've been here so long in Vienna that we have stability.
I'm trying to.
All right, so listen, let me see if I can put together a cogent thing or two for you. First of all, come on down, folks. There's plenty of room. People still arriving. So once again,
We are modeling the Western North Carolina Railroad through the hills and valleys of western North Carolina in the 1950s and early 1960s. So not all the trains you'll see here today. Oh, by the way, there's Thomas. Any of you know who Thomas the Tank Engine is? There he is. He visits us on open house days. You know. Okay, cool. There's another person that knows Thomas. Another person that knows Thomas. Thomas is a well-known guy. And here comes, I think, Emily. Somebody tell me if that's Emily. Yep, it's behind the stores there now. Is that Emily? Well, anyhow, I'll be corrected shortly. So anyhow, this is, again, a working scale model railroad. We are happy to have you with us today, and let me just tell you quickly a few things about the railroad. It's an HO scale railroad. It's about 1:87, which means a 40-foot boxcar is about 5 inches long or so. There's a bunch of them lined up in the yard there. The railroad is something that's been under construction continuously for almost 45 years in this location. The club is 75 years old this year. And we started off in a small yard office down in the Potomac Yard area, and once the Southern Railway needed the yard back, so they kicked us out and we came here. And in fact, my friend is showing a model of the model on a model. So it's a model of a model railroad on a model railroad.
How long have you been here?
We've been here over 45 years, and we came here because the railroad that was just outside here, the WNOD, or Washington Old Dominion, ceased operations after its last great hurrah was building Dulles Airport. A lot of building materials for Dulles came by here on the Washington and Old Dominion Railroad, and once that was initially completed, there wasn't much for the railroad to do, so it shut down. This place was boarded up, and in fact, when you go out, by the way, the exit door is here. Don't go back the way you came. Go out this door. When you do, though, go back and go in the front door and look over on the far wall. You can see an old yellowed newspaper article. It shows what this place looks like when we came. It was all boarded up. Our model railroad ancestors came in here and cleaned up this room, which is the freight house, and made it pleasant to work in. And then we started building the railroad. The new part of the building is over 100 years old. That's the ticket office and the waiting room. When you came in the waiting room, went through the ticket office, and into this room here. That new part was built in the early 1900s. So when you walked into this place, you walked into history. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down here. Let's make sure anybody's on the stairs or whatever, they can come on in. We want to make sure everybody gets a chance to see the railroad. Here comes some more of Thomas's friends. Again, we're glad you're with us, and when you leave, go out the exit door here. Be sure and grab a flyer. It's right next to the exit door. There's also a freight car there that takes donations. Your visit here is absolutely free, but if you feel like making a donation, we appreciate it. Most of the time on ViVa Vienna days, people spend their money on rides and popcorn or corn dogs, something like that. Does anybody have any questions? Any answers? Okay, what are the mountains made of? That's a good question I was asked earlier today, too. That's a very good question. The answer is most of them are made, what's supporting them are chicken wire frames, sometimes with strips of cardboard. Then we cover them with hydrocal, which is like plaster of Paris, sort of. And then, of course, we put the scenery on it, like the trees, the rocks, the grass. So that's a good question. Yeah, what makes the mountains? Sometimes on model railroads, it's extruded foam insulation that's cut to make a mountain shape. But on this one, it's mostly open chicken wire covered with cardboard and then hydrocal. Good question.
Do you work with an engineer or an artist?
Yeah, this guy here is an engineer, and he's an artist. Yeah, he's the one that does it all. So you ask him all those questions. No, model railroaders tend to be jacks. Not quite. They know a little bit about a lot of stuff. You need a little bit of electrical theory. You need a little bit of construction. You need to know a lot about railroads because we try to make this as close to the railroads, or we call them prototypical railroads, as possible. Stand by one. You knew that, right? That same car. So anyhow, let me tell you a little bit about what's in front of you. I'll spend a moment doing that. The roadway that's right in front of you is called Spencer Boulevard, and there's tracks in the roadway. You can see those tracks are supporting the Brewridge Traction Power and Light Company. Sometimes you may see a trolley go down the roadway there, because back in the 1950s, public transportation largely were trolleys from one end of town to the other, taking people shopping or over here to the city hall or whatever. A little bit further away from you, the main great lines of the Southern Railway, and then there's Spencer Yard, which is a place where the trains are brought in, the cars are reclassified, and then sent back out on the railroad. By the way, here comes one of Thomas's friends. I think this is Emily. Somebody's going to tell me if that's true or not. I don't know. Okay. So this train here is kind of a special train. It's more modern. Those locomotives are not from the 1950s. There's one of Thomas's friends too. I think that may be Henry. What was the question down there? What's I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Say that again. Oh, the red ones. Okay, I got the wrong name. Sorry. Thank you for educating me. All right, for those of you who might be interested in real railroading, this train is in front of me is a very interesting train. It's a refrigerated train, sometimes called a reefer, not the stuff that you smoke, but refrigerated cars. In the 1950s, these cars were kept cool by ice. That's the reason there's an ice house in the middle of Spencer Yard there. There were no mechanical refrigerated cars in the 1950s, so for perishables like flowers and vegetables and whatever, they had to be kept cool. They kept them cool with ice in the corners of each car. So you watch that train. It's going to come out over here shortly, and you can see what a train full of refrigerated cars looks like. Those trains were priority trains because just like passenger trains, they wanted to keep them moving. So they had a lot of priority on the railroad. If you have perishable goods, you don't want to have to sit and wait a long time. This railroad is, we're trying to model the era around late 50s, early 60s. The question is, how many of these tracks are still in use today? Well, I can tell you that Spencer Yard does exist down in Spencer, North Carolina. The tracks that you see there that are supporting Emily and Thomas and all his friends are the north-south main line for the Southern Railroad. That's still there. That's still used for trains from Washington to Atlanta, for example. The rest of the railroad is pretty much still intact through Western North Carolina. Some of the sidings don't exist anymore, or they're not used anymore. The roundhouse that used to be active there is not active anymore because there are no more steam engines. So it's there as a historic monument, but it's not in use anymore. I hope that answers your question. That's a good question. So, folks, welcome. Those of you who are down there, you can come down here anytime you want, but it's not a crowd at the moment. That'll change. But when you leave, please go out this door here and grab a flyer on your way out. Anybody have any questions? Anything, any information I could give you? Answers? Fun stuff? This train going by here right now is the Napa Valley Wine Train. We should all be on that one. Okay, I was just told that the car at the end of that train is where you need to be because that's where they're serving the wine. Is that right? Okay, so as it comes by, be sure and hop on the last car, not any of the forward ones. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down here. You don't have to stand on the stairs unless you really want to. So we're glad you're with us. This is the Northern Virginia Model Railroaders. We're a model railroad club, obviously, and this is our club layout, club railroad. It's the Western North Carolina Railroad from the 1950s, early 1960s. Steam locomotives, diesel locomotives, and of course on our open house days we have Thomas and his friends come by. We have some more modern trains that are also on the railroad today. We're just having fun. Hope you are too. Anybody had anything to eat out there yet today? Fine cuisine. Anybody have any recommendations for the? Yeah, thank you. You got the joke, huh? So we're glad you're here again. Welcome to. Welcome to Northern Virginia Model Railroaders. Again, we're glad you're spending part of your day with us. Thanks for being here.
Are some of these downtowns similar to real places? Or, yeah,
So if you have any interest in how the layout is controlled, the trains are all controlled via a Digitrax DCC system, but the switches are today controlled by a system called JMRI, the Java Model Railroading Interface. What that lets us do is put together these panels like you see in the lower right here. This one is controlling the entire Spencer Yard area. So you can see at the very top there's the red line, which is where Thomas and his friends are rolling through. There's the blue line, which also does a full circuit of the lower layout. And there's also the gold line, or the yellow line, that you can see branching off to the left that goes up the mountain towards Angelica, and then the rest of the layout, the upper tiers. Now we can watch along here as Ross, who is out there at the yard, is switching and throwing switches around for people to navigate Spencer Junction. Yep, he's just talking to someone who's coming out of the blue line from Washington. And we'll be riding around the Y, which we can't see from this angle. And we'll go up the mountain. What we do is we have these panels present on, we can access them on a couple of the computers that are around the building. We also have a handful of tablet devices, or our club members can use their phones or tablets that they might bring with them to throw switches here as they need to get different places. They're all touch panels. Historically, we did have physical panels with physical buttons, many of them with LEDs to indicate the position that the switches were supposed to be in. Those have all been deprecated. One or two of them may make their way to our museum at some point in the future. We do have a panel for every town or location along the way between the Washington-Atlanta staging area through Spencer up to the very end at at Asheville. There are also a couple of auxiliary panels that we can use for different things depending on what is going on the layout at any given time. We do have some trains moving through the Old Fort area, so we can take a look at what that panel looks like as well. can see the reefer train is parked on the siding. Looks like we've recently had a departure making its way up the mountain. And as soon as that clears the next area, you can see the reefer train depart. Looks like there's also the power train, the power move of multiple locomotives coming up through. Actually, let's take a look. We can see him passing through the There he is. Here we see it arriving at Oxford.
We had small ones, but we had up to it. We wanted to see if like two tables with the smaller ones and one was
Not a whole lot of movement in Old Fort right now, but you can see there is a train arriving, coming down the mountain.
Wait! Oh, train moving by itself!
Are you coming down? Yeah, so
Train moving by itself.
you still with the bus?
The tape is too long.
it's on now.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's because I threw the switch onto the
Oh,
side.
you have to throw the back switch also?
Yeah, I have to throw. Actually, is the back switch also? Is the back switch?
Yeah.
Because if I throw the forward switch, it's still on the ground.
Right.
That's not exactly ideal.
Oh, look, more CNN military restraints. Just a little question, but why couldn't you do it reverse? Like the extra facing this way and this?
Yeah, George, you should be clear all the way down to Spencer Road, which is a tree ride too.
Well, but
If you look at the backup, you see the red light. On that engine, it lets you know that's the end of the train.
What's the weirdest string that you put on this set? Weirdest string. The most weirdest string you've ever put on. I like Charlie. Watch out! He's really close!
My wife's out buying real estate on me.
You don't need an ice cream.
I like
She's all bummed out. She found this great condo that she loves, but we can't buy anything until we sell our place. She's like, I want to buy this place.
He passed us!
Two stations. I'm not seeing many trains.
What is the next one you put on?
All I need is the house
I never seen them. Watch out for all the
Dave in and me in. I'm going to show Dave about my engine. Okay? And then Dave's going to give you
He's going to be our number.
the date. Shift change.
Why don't you add cats on this truck?
I am waiting until because that reefer truck is that I'm waiting until
It's okay.
there's like 2 or 3. One got stalled and then bunched out.
Part of running the railroad, just gotta wait and hold. We're heading up the hill. A lot of waiting and holding.
Right now you're kind of, I guess that's fair, right? Yeah, that's fair. Swing around the back, you didn't take a look.
And I saw, hey look, I just saw Jason's car.
The lights on in my passenger cars.
They were there. In those extra tracks.
I got lights on around. Don't worry about it.
Well, good afternoon, folks. Glad you're all here. Welcome to Northern Virginia Model Railroaders. Welcome to ViVa Vienna as well. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves. This is a working scale model of the actual railroad, the Western North Carolina Railroad. There's a map on the wall over there that shows the route that we're modeling from Salisbury, North Carolina, that beautiful depot down there at the end, all the way up to Asheville, which is up here behind this mountain. You can see the Biltmore Mansion up there. Anybody here ever been to Asheville, seen the Biltmore Mansion? Cool. Did you have to pay to get in? Oh, okay. I'll tell you, yeah, you do have to pay, but you can see it here for free. Okay, anyhow, glad you're here. Again, this is a scale model. It's HO scale, the most popular scale for the mathematicians, about 1 to 87.2, which means that a 40-foot boxcar is about 5 inches long. This building you're in is historic. It is there was a railroad depot here before the Civil War. The new part of the building is built in the early 1900s. So when you walked in that front door, you were walking into history. That's the waiting room and the ticket agent office. This area used to be a freight area, and when we came here, we turned it into a nicer room so we could build a model railroad. The club is actually, the Northern Virginia Model Railroaders Club is actually 75 years old this year. So there used to be why is there a depot here? Well, there used to be a railroad outside there called the Washington and Old Dominion Railroad. For those of you that are interested, it carried milk into Washington. This was a dairy area in the 1920s. And in the 1960s, it carried materials to build the Dulles International Airport. So that's a little bit about this railroad, a little bit about the history of the building and the railroad that was outside there. Anybody have any questions? Question down there, yes ma'am.
How do you read the tiny tickets that the tiny people give to ride the train?
So the question is, how do we read the tiny tickets that the tiny people get to ride on the tiny trains? And the answer is reading glasses. That's a great question. That's one of the best I've ever heard. Come on down, by the way. There's plenty of room down here. You don't have to stand at the stairs. Enjoy the whole railroad. Yeah. Yeah, the trains are operated, by the way, by individual engineers. Each locomotive has a little microchip in it, so it can be addressed directly and independently from all the other trains. That way we can run a whole bunch of trains here at one time and nobody gets in trouble. Here's a question here. Yes, sir. The guy. What happened to your hat, buddy? Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure I can recognize you without that hat. Go ahead. Well, the question was about the white school bus that he saw on the railroad. And the answer is there were times in the railroad business when they needed to move people on the railroad and they didn't have a train to do it with, so they would put little rail wheels on trucks, sometimes on cars, and sometimes on buses. And that way they could move people like to a spot where they needed to do maintenance for something like that on the railroad, but in a vehicle that looks like a school bus. And then when they got there, they could go off the railroad and drive on the roads. Hope that answers your question. Question down there, the guy with the orange shirt. Oh no, maybe it's a Kafia. Sorry, go ahead.
Those cars you were talking about, those wheels that drop down, they just are free spinning, but the actual tires drive the car, right?
That's correct. Yes, the guy was not correcting, but adding to the knowledge about, for example, the school bus. The way those cars and school buses ran was the wheels kept them on the track. They had these railroad wheels that were an addition to the bus. But the way they moved was the rubber tires on the bus sat on the rails, and that's how it actually moved. Or the car. Okay, come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down here. Glad you're with us. More people coming in the door, I see. It's a busy time this weekend with ViVa Vienna days going on. Anybody here had anything to eat yet? Yeah, what did you have?
Pad Thai.
Pad Thai. Okay, anybody here have a corn dog? Pizza? Popcorn? Pizza? Anybody have any ice cream? Check that man's ID. I don't think you're old enough. The little guy here with the Washington hat on. Oh, oh, okay. I was asking a question. All right, so anybody here had any other fine cuisine out there they want to talk about? Okay, that guy. Pulled pork. Okay. Well, that's actually fascinating. I should tell you though, this is not an eatery. This is a model railroad club. I'm just interested because it's lunchtime. I want to find out where the fine cuisine is out there. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down this end. And by the way, the exit door is here, not the way you came. You don't go swimming upstream, but be sure and grab a flyer when you leave. We're not telling you to leave. We're just telling you when you do leave, grab a flyer and go out this door. If you want to see it again, you can come back around and go through again. That's okay. And by the way, the flyer will tell you about our next open houses. The very, very next open house is tomorrow, right here, this same time, same place. So if you didn't get enough railroad today, come back tomorrow and you can see some more. Was there a question down there? No, I don't think so. No, okay. All right, again, we're glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. If you have any questions, ask one of these guys in the green shirts. They know everything.
Actually got access to the building, the first thing we had to do was, it was a storage hut. So there was equipment in here when they had removed the Washington and Old Dominion Railroad. So there were switch stands. I think there were a couple, I guess, pole cars that you would push along for maintenance, those sort of things. So we had to get all that out. The other thing is, this station is so old. This area here that we're in, that you're looking at now, is built like a barn, in that there are no 2x4 studs that hold up this wall here. What it is massive timbers every 4 or 5 feet, and then there's major timbers on top. So that what we ended up doing is we had to fill that in, and we insulated all the walls here. So this section of the station is insulated, which is great in the winter time. We poured a concrete floor because we had no floor. We took out, there were I guess they were 2x12 beams that went across here for the baggage floor, for the baggage room, because the whole floor was up at the same level as a boxcar would be outside. And what was interesting is the beams were actually 2 inches by 12 inches, because it was back then. And those oak beams, we finally ended up selling them to a woodworking group around here, because the beams were over 100 years old. So they really loved those. So that's how we got rid of those. Then the situation was that with Captain Holt and Cooper, we designed the layout. And if the layout was designed based on Holt's aircraft, he was naval aviation aircraft design. And what it comes down to is thin plywood on edge with joists or supports on each end, so it turned into a beam. So all these areas here are made that way, and with cantilever. All the railroad was designed and it was built in Holt's basement, and he lived over in Potomac, and then brought over here. So what you would have is join section AA. It's like almost a kit to AA, and that's how we built the railroad. And we started from here at ground level, right at the aisle, and worked our way up to the very top. And we also, that's how we built the track. We started here at the bottom and worked our way up the track. Over the 3 or 4 years, we'd go halfway up and build a false loop to turn around and come back down so that we could have a little action. At the beginning, most of the members were drawn here because they wanted to build rather than run, because there really was nothing much to run. You had to build. So the group was builders. And that's kind of how what was drawn at that time was the building group. So here we are today. It's stood up over all these years and it's done very well.
The loops up there are very close to
Well, good afternoon, folks. Glad you're here. Thanks for joining us for model railroading here at Northern Virginia Model Railroaders. Glad you're here. Thanks for sharing part of your ViVa Vienna with us. How's it going out there? You having fun? Anybody? She is. He is. Anybody had anything to eat yet? What'd you have? What'd you have to eat? Nothing but the finest cuisine here today. Yes, indeed. Anyhow, this is a working scale model. As some of you know, if you haven't been here before, I'll tell you briefly. Working HO scale model railroad. We're modeling the Western North Carolina Railroad, and there's a map over there on the wall that shows you the route we're modeling. It goes from Salisbury, North Carolina, which is that beautiful train station down there, all the way up here to Asheville, which is behind this mountain. You can see the Biltmore Mansion overlooking it there, and you know you're in Asheville. So again, this is a working scale model. HO scale is the most popular model railroading scale. It's about the 1:87, which means a 40-foot boxcar is the size of these cars lined up here in the yard, about 5 inches long or so. Let's see what else might be of interest to you. This building is historic. The building you're in is a building which started here before the Civil War. There was a train already outside there coming by here before the Civil War. The new part of the building, the part through which you entered over there, is the new part. That was built in the early 1900s, so it's over 100 years old. When you walked through that door, you walked into history. Why was it here? Well, there was a railroad outside the wall there, the Washington and Old Dominion Railroad, so that's why this is the W&OD Trail. Some of you from the local area probably know that as the W&OD Trail. Well, that railroad was never really a very big railroad. It did carry milk into Washington in the early 1920s because this was a dairy farming area. And in the 1960s, they were building this new airport out here west of town. You may have heard of it. It's called Dulles International Airport. And a lot of the building materials came by here on the train. This railroad was used to take building materials out for the construction of the initial part of Dulles International Airport. When that project initially was finished, the railroad really didn't have a reason for existence, and it shut down. This building was boarded up, and if you want to see what it looked like after you leave, by the way, this is the exit door. Don't go back the way you came because you'll run into the fish swimming upstream. Go out this door, grab a flyer. But anyhow, go back out, go in the front door again, and look at the far wall, and you can see an old yellow newspaper story that talks about the way this building looked when we first came here in the 1970s. So there you go. There's a little history of a little story about the railroad, a little story about the building and the railroad that was outside. Anybody have any questions? By the way, there's room down here. Come on down, folks. Everybody get to know your neighbors, make friends. So anybody have any questions about the railroad? If you don't, I'll tell you the answers to the usually asked questions. One of the usually asked questions is, how long did it take us to build this? And the answer is over 40 years. But it's a work in progress. We're constantly maintaining it, upgrading it. The technology has changed dramatically in 45 years or so. So things are a little bit different here now, even though you may not see it. One example is every one of these locomotives that you see has a little integrated circuit chip in it so that it can be addressed electronically separately from all the other locomotives. So that way we can run multiple trains throughout the railroad and never have one train conflict with another. In theory, right. Thank you. My colleague points out, in theory, we don't run into each other, but if we do, the good news is that nobody gets hurt. We hope. Come on down, folks. There's plenty of room down here. If you're stuck there on the edge of the stairs, come on down. Enjoy the rest of the railroad. So let's see, what else might you be interested in knowing? Some of the questions are asked are, how many trains can we run at once? And the answer is dozens, but there's only so much room on the layout. Right now we have at least, 6, 7, 8 trains running. There's several of Thomas's friends. There's one of Thomas's friends coming by the central area there where the town diner is. And if you hang around, you'll see a few more. So we can run a lot of trains at one time. And sometimes we have people we have an operating session for the club. and we pretend to operate a real railroad, moving freight cars around and stuff like that. And we may have dozens of trains running at one time. Okay, the question was asked, how are the trains powered? It's a great question. The answer is there's electricity in the rails, 12 to 14 volts. And by the way, in that electrical signal in the rails, there are digital instructions which can be addressed to each of these locomotives that I've mentioned before. So that's a good question. There's electric motor in every locomotive, and it's powered with the electricity from the rails, and that's how the trains move. Great question. There comes Thomas, by the way, Thomas the tank engine.